Hello, welcome to Boots in Transition. This is Chris, your host, as always. And today, my guest, Amanda Huffman. We're going to talk about her transition from being active duty Air Force officer, Airman, to a mother and now blogger and podcaster.
Correct.
So, welcome, Amanda. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
So you were an Air Force captain. I did the read ahead. I went to as Airman to Mom and started doing a read ahead on your story. So tell me, you were an Air Force captain, right? Civil engineering, and you
Correct.
deployed as well.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about your service, please.
I was a civil engineer, and for my first duty assignment, we were at Holloman Air Force Base, and I worked in the environmental section, mainly doing like spill containment and other random jobs, but I got to do more like helping with the air show and going out into the shops that are part of the CE squadron and learn about what all the enlisted troops did. And then I moved over to the engineering flight and got to do the F-22 was coming to Holloman, so I was helping with the F-22 bed down. And then while I was working there, I got tasked to deploy to Afghanistan with the Army on a provincial reconstruction team. So not really a traditional Air Force deployment. Our mission was to work directly with the people and help to rebuild slash build from nothing schools, roads, bridges, government buildings, pretty much anything they wanted us to do. And so we would go outside the wire at least once a week. I had another captain with me, so we'd switch off. So the team would go like 2 to 3 times, and then we would switch off who went on each mission. And we worked with the people of Afghanistan. And then I came home from my deployment, and while I was deployed, my husband moved to Ohio to go to the Air Force Institute of Technology to get his master's, and I was able to get a job there working at Headquarters Air Force Materiel Command, doing energy management. And that was when, after he graduated, we decided that we'd start trying to have kids, and I got pregnant like right away, and then yeah, really fast. And then with my husband being active duty Air Force and me being active duty Air Force and his career field being able to go to some bases and my career field be able to go to different bases, we knew eventually one of us would have to get out. So I thought it would be a good time to get out of the Air Force when my son was born, which maybe looking back wasn't the best idea, but that's when I left the Air Force.
So what year was that?
2013.
2013. When were you in Afghanistan?
2010. Pretty much the whole year from February to November.
Yeah, where at? I've worked a lot of PRT, so just curiosity.
I was in Kapisa, so right next to Bagram.
Right. Okay. So how does being a mother compare to being in a counterinsurgency?
I think it's a lot harder to be a mom. I feel like when you're deployed, you have like your people that you're deployed with. I guess I don't feel like it. You have the people that you're deployed with, and like you go through hard things, but you have people right there beside you who are going through the deployment with you. And that was like one of the things I felt bad for my husband, because he was a male, obviously, and he was kind of forgotten about because he was active duty, and like no one really checked in on him. He got one meal while I was gone that a colonel in his squadron gave him, not my squadron. So I feel like motherhood's really lonely, and you feel like you're all alone, and you have a team aspect when you're overseas and when you're home as a mom. Especially like going from working to staying at home, I felt really isolated and alone, and like I was failing at everything.
Yeah, I can imagine where you're going from. You've got the camaraderie, you've got the teamwork, you've got your peers check in on you.
Right.
Then you're out, and you're with your husband, who if he's not there, you're isolated. You don't have the family network around you.
Right.
So that's got to be going night and day.
Yep.
The reason I ask about the comparison to counterinsurgency is I came home to a 1-year-old when I got back from Iraq. I'm sorry, not Iraq. First trip to Afghanistan, and I remember that I remember the baby crying and she wouldn't stop.
Hmm.
And I thought how much easier a mortar attack was to deal with because you could do something versus a crying baby where you're kind of helpless except doing it. So that's,
Yes.
I think a lot of people don't realize just how hard of a transition it is, especially when you're by yourself.
Yes. Yeah, it's so hard. And like the military always teaches you like you do A, B, C, and D, and then this happens. And with a baby, you do A, B, C, and D, and this happens, and then you do the same thing and something else happens. And so it's like it was really hard to go from like a very structured environment where like you follow the rules, you did what you were supposed to, and you got rewarded, and then you have a baby who's a person and you do what the book says or you try a different book and it's kind of like it's a person, you don't really know how they're going to react or what's going to happen. So that was like I think that was the hardest part, going from being like do this and this will happen, and to having a baby who didn't do anything like what I wanted him to do.
Now, did you have younger siblings growing up or anything to help you prepare for?
My sister is 22 months younger than me, so
Okay, so
not
not.
not enough. I babysat a little bit, but I always remember like whenever it was time for the kids to go to bed, I'd be like, go to bed. And then they would like go to bed. So I'm pretty sure I'd never dealt with diapers. So I don't think I ever had to deal with like little babies. So
So you get out, you're a mother. Was your husband around for that first year? Was he in or out?
no, he was home for the first 2 months, and then he left for 2 months for what they call squadron officer school in Alabama, and that was 2 months, and that was kind of where I like fell apart because then I was really alone. Like I
Right.
would get through each day, and he'd come home, and like he was sleeping pretty well at night, and then my husband left, and I'm pretty sure my son could tell that I was stressed out because he stopped sleeping at night and it was just like it was like torture. Like he wasn't sleeping, he was waking up almost every hour, and it was just really hard to be alone. And I didn't know any like mom groups that I should have joined. I didn't All my friends were working during the day, and people were like, you were in the Air Force, you should be fine, you're a mom, it's not that big a deal. And so I was really isolated and alone and struggling through that time.
Do you think you were dealing with some depression there as well?
Yes, I didn't really think about it. I took like TAP, because you have to.
Right.
But no one ever talked to me because everything about TAP was like, you need to find a job, you need to find a job. And like, it took years later to be like, oh, the reason they want you to find a job is because you're losing your identity of being a military officer, which
Mhm.
had been part of my life for 10 years. And then it was gone. And I was a stay-at-home mom and I felt like I was completely failing at everything. So yeah, depression definitely was setting in. And I'm
Right.
not saying like postpartum depression, it was more like an identity crisis, loss
Yeah,
of
for
losing
sure.
who I was.
And that's kind of what, that's when I started this podcast, I mean, God knows I'll never make a dime at it, but I meet a lot of people who go through the same thing. Through it, I meet them through sports, I meet them through casual encounters, and finding your identity is really hard. But on top of that, uh, what do you want to do? What's going to fulfill you? And motherhood, fatherhood, stay at home dads as well. Stay at home dads are kind of looked down on, I think.
Right.
But it's a hard job. I'm kind of a stay at home dad now. My kids are older, but I do now the job my wife used to do. And she does real estate at military home base. Give it a plug. Um, it's hard. It's so chaotic, especially
Yes.
with like the schools who tell you everything last minute. Your children, once they start telling you about something due, it's always, oh, it's due tomorrow, and you've got to run to the store, and then you're trying to make dinner and you're trying to clean the house. And I never gave my, I mean, I kind of gave my wife credit, but now that I see what it's like, I definitely did not give her enough credit. It is a hard, hard job, and it
Yeah.
goes unsung. You don't get the credit, especially if you're isolated, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like your husband comes home, I'm sure, and we say thank you and we mean it, but there's not that appreciation. Have you
Right.
done a daytime swap and let him try it out for a bit and see how he likes it?
He's really good about letting me, because with the blogging stuff kind of taking off, I've had to rely on him more to help me out with like when I go to conferences or all the other or the stuff I do in the evenings, and he knows that I am passionate about this, and so he's really good with taking care of the kids, but I feel like they're always better for him, and he usually doesn't have to do like the chores because I've usually like done the laundry or whatever, so he gets to play with them.
Yeah.
And not that he doesn't help out, but it's just kind of different. I think if you're just home for like a day or for a couple days or watching the kids in the evening, it's not the same toll as like it being your everyday thing.
Yeah, it's not the everyday grind.
Mm-hmm.
So at what point did you start to, because now you seem like you fully embraced, the motherhood thing, the identity of it. In fact, in a way that you're thriving with
Yes.
your podcast and your blog. How long do you think it took you to go from this is my to accepting this is my thing. This is what I'm doing.
I struggled for over a year. I actually, when I got pregnant with my second son, I was like, no one on the outside could tell that like how much I was hurting on the inside. But when I got pregnant with my second son, my oldest was about a year and a half, a little bit older than a year and a half. And when I got pregnant with my second son, even though he wasn't born, I like had this instant love for him that I never had when I got pregnant the first time, kind of because I got pregnant like so quickly, and then I was like knowing that when I had him, I was getting out of the Air Force and I wasn't really ready for that. And so that instant love that I had for the baby that was growing inside of me kind of helped me realize like how much I actually loved my 1-year-old, who I had always looked at as like he had taken something away from me, and I hadn't really realized what he had given me until I got pregnant. And it was through that pregnancy and him being my second son being born that I realized how much I actually loved being a mom and how thankful I was that I get to stay at home with my kids and take care of them. So
That's a bold thing to admit.
that was really hard to say. I'm not
Yeah,
gonna lie.
I can tell, because it's not what I've seen. It's not what people will hype it that it's an automatic thing, especially if you're going from a career. I know I hate to say resentment. I don't think resentment is the right word for it, but there is this feeling of being forced out of your career into something new, and you
Right.
got to unpackage that. Plus, you got to unpackage who you're gonna be. What's gonna. Yes, it's being a mother is a strong identity, but I think we all need something else.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think that was. Thanks for sharing that, because that's got to be hard to admit.
Yeah. It is, but it's the truth. And like going through that experience and like getting pregnant with my son and like embracing how much I loved the baby that was growing inside of me really changed everything about like where I am today and who I am. And I'm really thankful that I was able to make that change, because I was always so afraid of like failing my son and like that I needed to push him to meet the next milestone, and I wasn't enjoying him and like play like I was like, you need to sit up, you need to roll over, you need to, instead of just being like, you're a person, let's just see how
Yeah.
this goes. And through that I've changed like how I parented my second son, but also how I parented my first son in the future. And we have a lot more fun. And yeah, and it's just, I really enjoy being a mom now.
Well, there's definitely a learning curve. I'm also have two children. I think we all go into our first child with this idea that if I just set the parameters right, then
Right.
this product is going to come out like this. And we don't take into account how much the child's personality matters. And then here comes the second child, and I always joke. I say that we use the same recipe, we cooked them just as long, totally different product.
Yeah, that's true.
Because they live in the exact same environment and they perceive the world completely different, and you have to parent different.
Right.
It's not, I like to meet people having their first children, first child, because they're going to tell you exactly how it's going to be. They've got it
Right.
road mapped out. And I just kind of laugh, like, well, they're never going to watch TV, and they're going to do this, and they're going to get straight A's, and they're going to speak 5 languages, and they're going to be an Olympic athlete. And kind of chuckle. It's like, yeah, they're also not going to clean their room, and one day they're going to love you, one day they're going to hate you, and they're going to hang out with people you don't like. There's just so many curveballs.
Right.
And you're still in the beginning phase of that.
I am. Yeah.
It's going to be quite a ride, especially our ride took off around 12 with our youngest, when she decided she was going to be a punk rocker and into art. And that is who she is. And I struggled with that a little bit as parenting, and it took a while to accept it. That's just who she is. And so you're gonna have fun coming up.
Yeah. Yep.
So a question I've talked to my wife about, and that is family support in your unit. Are you involved in your unit's family support now? We call it FRG, Family Readiness Group, in the Army.
I haven't ever found when we moved. Well, we were in Ohio, and then when my son turned 1, we moved to California, and I found people through my church that I really connected with, because we were in LA, and the way the base is set up in LA, the base is in El Segundo, and the housing's in San Pedro, and so there's not a very good spouse support network because of the way that the base is co-located, and we lived in the community, and so driving down to San Pedro was too far away to go. And then and then here in Virginia, we just moved this past summer, and we're not connected to a base. We're out at we're out in the community, and so there's a spouse group that one of the spouses created because we didn't have that support network. There was no military spouse anything, and so she created a Facebook group, and I'm in that, and I go to events, but I also do mothers of preschoolers, MOPS, and that's kind of where I've met some of my closest friends.
Yeah, well, that's your peer group now, though, right? So I know I spoke with my wife about this, and she didn't jump in right away. We were at Fort Sill, so we had pretty strong base, and that was one of the regrets that she had, is that she didn't get involved in those groups earlier. A little standoffish. So, my next question was going to be, how much of those groups helped you as a mother, at not just parenting, but having that peer group? Because a lot of people do stand out. Don't jump into those.
Right.
Shyness. My niece, I'm talking to right now, she has a new baby in San Diego, and I've been trying to say, get into these groups.
Right.
So if you were talking to a new mother who's not in one, how would you convince them that these things are important?
Well, I also didn't do MOPS the first year because I had heard of MOPS when I was growing up, and I was like, that sounds kind of lame, and I don't really understand, why do I need that? And then I started going to MOPS because I started Bible study and all my friends were doing it. And it's just a safe place, and a place where you find out that you're not alone. Because I feel like motherhood, especially being a new mom, because like you said, you go into parenting and you have this plan and you're like, this is what's going to, and every new parent you talk to says the same thing. And you're like, yeah, good luck with that. But MOPS is kind of a place that when that dream that you have crashes down and you realize, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. You find you can be in MOPS as from being pregnant all the way to having a kindergartner. And so you find moms who have, I have a 3 and a 5-year-old. So I'm in there and I'm a little bit ahead of the moms who've just had babies. And then there's moms who have kindergartners, but then they have older kids who are in elementary school. So it's a good mix of moms that can be I've been there and it'll get better. Your baby will start sleeping. And then it's also good because there's other moms there who aren't getting any sleep and aren't exhausted and don't know what to do. And so it's just a great way to find your people, your tribe. And the military is really good at giving you your people, because like when you show up to a base, you have like your squadron. I think that's one of the hardest parts for moving with not being in the military anymore, is that when I move, I have to like go out into the community or get involved in, like I have to do a lot of stuff to make friends. And my husband's like, I just go to work and I meet people. And I'm like,
You have to
well,
start all over again every
yeah,
time.
yeah,
And it's going to get harder with the kids because they have to.
yeah,
We had this conversation with one of my first podcasts about how difficult it is for the military child and how many relationships they have to start and stop through their career. And social media helps a lot. It can hurt as well, but for keeping up with friends, like my daughter, she has a really good friend when we were stationed at Fort Leavenworth, and now they're both getting ready to start college together, and they talk every day. And before it was pen pals, so it helps a little bit, but they're still not there every day. And every time you move to a new location, you've got different norms. The kids that wear something different, they act different. And especially if you're not in a military base, they've been friends forever and you're the new kid. So moms go through that as well, though, right? Because say you have a peer group you can rely on if things get hard. Then in a situation like you're at where you're not tied to a base, you're that new person, that awkward moment where you had to go and introduce yourself.
Right.
So now you said you're very active with your church group. Do they have ties to other church groups? They kind of help pave the way when you're going, or is that something you kind of do on your own?
Like finding a church, or?
Well, so you're tied into a church, you're getting support, then you move to another base. Obviously, you can't take that church with you.
Right.
Is there? I've never been a church goer. But there's a network there at least, right?
Not really. Pretty much all the churches are, there's like denominations. So there's like denominations that we lean toward and we look to. And like some people, mainly because of like Facebook, you can like get recommendations from people. And so, but it's finding a church that, especially now that we have kids, that fits our personality and meets our kids' needs. It's been really challenging, this move. We started at one church and we've switched to another church, and we're still trying to find our place.
So it's all trial and error, basically.
Yeah, it is. It's a little bit of luck, and it's a lot of like putting yourself out there, because we could have easily went to the first church. We thought it was where we should be, and then we decided we didn't like it, and we could have just stopped going to church, because it's hard to go to a new church, especially like bringing the kids and hoping they like it and having to have them make new friends when they're already having to make new friends because they moved across the country. And so, yeah.
I've seen a lot of my friends, they were churchgoers. I did 20 years, and I saw them just sort of disconnect and like, we'll do it some other time. Because of that exact thing is, you find a group, and it doesn't have to be a church. It can be a sports team. It can be a club. It can be whatever it is. And you finally get a sense of home, a sense of belonging. Then you uproot, and then you walk into something you think is going to be another welcoming experience, and you feel awkward. You don't gel. Maybe the kids, they just get a bad vibe. It just doesn't feel like your people. You're, like you said, like your tribe. So there are a lot of tools out there from others, and I'm becoming more familiar with it now that I'm out, just through real estate. You get into these networking groups and people recommend you. And at MacDill, there's probably around MacDill Air Force Base, there's probably 20 different spouse and parent groups, and you got to find which one fits for you. They're out there, and I didn't even know they existed until I got out. Because as a duty military person, I never really thought it was my job to do that stuff, which was a selfish position for me because my wife moved because I moved. I can be more involved. So I do a lot of self-reflecting and how much I could have been a better parent, how much I could have helped more, and learning as we go.
Right.
So, but now if you're not near a base, what are you going to do, right?
Yeah. It's not easy, and I feel California is very, like you talked about how the culture is so different. California was very like open, and there were so many people who were transient because because so many people moved to the LA area for work, that almost everybody in that MOPS group that I was in was not from California. And so here in Virginia, there's a lot more families who've been here forever. And so they're like, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, I'm going to my cousin's birthday party. And so it's hard in that way to get connected, because there's so many people who are already like connected with their families that
They have long-term connections.
Yeah. And you don't need, if you have that family support, it's not, you don't like, aren't as desperate to rely on friends, because you have someone you can call at midnight if there's a kid sick. But yeah, so yeah, it's been interesting.
Yeah, we were stationed in Monterey, and then the difference between Oklahoma and Monterey, California, just the general population. Just when you walk into a location, a restaurant, there's just some, everyone's in Oklahoma. If you walked into a restaurant, everyone stared at you like, "Who's this guy?" And it makes it, because they all know each other. They've known each other forever. California, maybe because it was the transients, maybe there's something in the water, I don't know. Like, you walked in, it was just different. So there's culture shock. So you're going through mother culture shock, you're going through military to civilian culture shock, you're going through regional culture shock. And then how did you I met you through a podcaster group on Facebook.
Right.
How has stuff like that, like those social groups, helped you find your network that is transient with you? You seem pretty well known on there when I talk to it.
Yeah, I started blogging, and I was kind of connected to a group of a lot of like older ladies who weren't military, and then but that kept me like blogging because I had those people who were blogging with me. But then I don't remember, it's been a while, like 3 or 4 years ago, I got connected with a group called the Milspouse Creative, which is a group created by Monty Jefferson, who she did something that a lot of groups I haven't seen. She like wouldn't let people put links. It was all about building community, making friends, making it so that you could collaborate and learn from each other, instead of like, she would say like, drop your link and go. She'd say something better, but that's, like some people, like, they are link droppers and they just drop their link in the thread and then they don't hang out and get to know people. So through that,
everywhere there.
Yeah. So through that group, I started making friends in the military spouse community, and I finally got to meet a bunch of them in person at the Military Influencer Conference in September. So
which one did you go to?
The one in Orlando.
That's when my wife was there.
Okay.
She was at the she did her military home base there. She loved it. I'm going to go with her this year.
I'll be there too, so we'll get to meet in person. Yeah. So going to that conference and meeting the people in person and meeting people that I admired who I didn't think knew who I was, and then they were like, "Oh no, I know who you are. I'm following you." And so it was just, that was a really cool way to connect with other people. And I mean, that's the reason I'm doing a podcast, because I had this idea to do this, and then I met with a friend and she was like, "Why don't you do a podcast?" And I was like, "Okay, I'll try that." And so that's kind of how that all happened.
Okay. Yeah, the milspouse community is strong. I didn't know how strong it is. In fact, a lot of my wife's business is based on that because of referrals. And she hires milspouses, and I'm not here to give a plug. I'm talking about the milspouse. She hires strictly milspouses as her concierges, and I've been blown away at how fast that concept of like, hey, here's a milspouse looking out for other milspouses, and it's like wildfire the way that spreads. One of the things I've become aware of in this month, I know is the month of the milspouse, is how hard it is for women who want to have a career and have to move with their husbands constantly. And it's hard to find a career you can take with you. And I've become a little more educated myself with it. And it is challenging, right? Because you have to build a reputation. Military takes a reputation with you when you uproot and move again.
Right.
You got to start all over again. I think podcasting is awesome because you can do it anywhere. And your blogging is awesome. I saw your blog, and I'm going to have you talk about your blog here in a second because as a father with two girls, I didn't have sisters growing up. So again, I'm learning a lot about it. Loving what Marvel's doing with the women empowerment these days. My kids are way into
I
it.
love Captain Marvel.
My kids are into that, and I'm also like, so now I'm more aware of female athletes and female entrepreneurs. And your website, your blog is about basically, it's almost like an oral tradition written, but the way it reads to me is just keeping these names alive of military women.
Right.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, it started really funny. When my youngest was like 4 months old, I started writing 5 minutes a week, and I was like, if I can write for 5 minutes a week, it'll be an accomplishment. And through that, it's changed and morphed. And I did a deployment series in 2017 where I focused on deployments, and I asked all these people who I deployed with and all these people who had husbands who had deployed, and I just asked everyone that I knew for stories, and I ended up getting responses from primarily women, like all women except for one. I got one guy. And that really shocked me, which I feel is funny because obviously I deployed, but I just didn't expect to hear from women because there's so many men in the military, and that's like who I was asking to respond to the call. And then I got all these women, and then I heard their stories, and I was like, this is amazing. Like, I didn't even know like what women were doing, and I thought my deployment was kind of crazy because I was outside the wire and I was attached to an infantry unit in 2010 when women weren't supposed to be in combat. And so it was just so fascinating to learn about their stories and what they were doing for the military that I wanted to hear more stories from women. So I was planning last year to do the series again, but just focus on women. But with our PCS and life happening, it didn't happen. And then that idea kind of morphed into doing a podcast. And I'm taking all the stories I collected last year and putting them in an ebook that I'm going to launch on June 12th. When women were officially allowed to serve in the military. So,
do you have a name for it yet?
It's called Women of the Military, just awesome. Like the podcast.
Yeah.
So.
Well, not enough people do it, and this is a hell of a time for women in the military. I mean, it's for what I've been observing again with my daughters. Now they're coming of age. I've always told my daughters, hey, you can do anything. It's America. You can be anybody you want. You can be, now we have women running for president, not elected yet, but a lot of women taking over in Congress, women in the military. I think we have our first full general in the Army now, and Ranger School, women going through Ranger School, women in SF, women in combat, combat MOSs. So to me, this is actually absolutely incredible time to be a father raising daughters. And I think for someone with what you're doing with the timing of it, will be great.
Yeah.
There's so many unsung female heroes in the military and all branches, be it the nurses in World War II and things they went through. So I guess you have just so much material you can work with, right?
Yes. And I have so many women signing up to share their experience. And so I actually am almost recorded all the way through the summer. Because we're going to be traveling a lot this summer, so I'm trying to get pre-recorded. But I was worried that I'd have to like fill in weeks with like sharing my story just to make it through. But I have interviews scheduled to get me through the summer, and I only have like 3 or 4 more interviews left to make that happen. And so it wasn't. And someone was like, "What are you doing to like get people to sign up?" And I'm like, not really anything. I just started the podcast, and then people tell their friends, and women are just so excited to talk about their military experience because so many women never get a chance to talk about their experience. And actually, I questioned on LinkedIn because I asked, do males really get to talk about their military experience? And I found that a lot of guys don't really get to talk about their experience either. People say like, thank you for your service, and then they walk away and they don't really get a chance
You get it. You get opportunities if you make them. I know
Right.
people who will come over to me and tell me, they basically give me their ORB, their officer record brief. Especially, like the old joke, how do you know if someone's a pilot? They'll tell you, you know,
That's true. Yeah.
but I especially these days, but it's it's an awkward conversation for people who didn't serve. Especially, like I had so many people come up to me. I was an Afghan specialist. I was a AFPAC hand. I speak the language.
Okay.
Most of my career was centered around Afghanistan. I like to tell people I was doing counterinsurgency before it was cool. Uh, but at the same time, I used to get so frustrated with people who don't understand these false images of what it's like. And I think for women, it's, in the military right now, there's so much people have to unlearn. There's so many, you know, bad stereotypes for women in the military.
Right.
Uh, be it, well, you're with an infantry unit. I'm sure you saw it.
Yeah.
Either they kid sister you too much, or they think you're there to date, or they think that you're some political correct attachment, that you don't really get a chance to just be you. And at least it probably takes a while to get there.
I feel like I was lucky because I was an officer. Like they knew they couldn't date me, and I think I felt like they admired. I felt I had a really good unit. They took really good care of me. I mean, they saw me as they did tell me I like was special cargo. That was my nickname, but
Mhm.
I I didn't mind being special cargo because I didn't really like want to be out. Like I wasn't like, oh, let me go out and fight the bad guys. I was like, I'll do whatever you guys tell me because my job was to just interact with the Afghans. And so I felt like I had a really good team who protected me. And whenever I felt like there were too many people like surrounding me, I would always like look over my shoulder and like within arm's reach, there would be one of the squad leads would be right there. And so, I mean, yeah, they're infantry, so you kind of just have to let some stuff slide. But I I'm forever grateful for how they protected me and how they took care of me and how they like welcomed me in and they respected me as an officer. But I have talked to women who weren't officers and they would get like emails about like meet me at my room and like that sort of thing. And I feel like I don't know if it's because I was an officer, but that's kind of what I'm assuming that because I was an officer, was kind of protected from that, and maybe they knew not to do that. Maybe they got a talking to, like, don't
Right.
even think
You do
about
have
it.
a level. You do have a level of separation, but I've seen it go both ways. Being military intelligence, I served with one my whole career, and we used to say that I don't want an analytical team that doesn't have a woman on it
Right.
because they see things I miss. Anytime you have someone from a different, I would guess, say demographic, they're going to help you identify your own bias when you're doing analysis. So I've worked with women all my career, and I've seen the way that military men act different when a woman comes onto your team, especially if she wasn't there. We had one fall in on our team in Afghanistan, and it was an interesting dynamic because I always looked at like I'm an officer, she was junior, so I took that dad role, and as long as you're in the two shop, you're safe in the two shop. But I would see people coming off the fob, and they'd see her, and their whole demeanor changes. Like, I just treat her like a soldier. She's a
Right.
soldier.
Yeah.
She's, but those were people who were accustomed to, some of those were officers enlisted who were accustomed to being around females, and then I would see excuse me, soldiers who were not, and they had to get past this whole idea like, hey, she's just as good at her job. She carries her ruck. You don't carry it for her. She qualifies her own weapon. In fact, the best rifleman I ever had in my platoon was a woman, and she couldn't miss the target. She was a dead eye. I remember saying like, I'll have her in my foxhole anytime because I'll give her my ammo. She's a better shot than me, and just instant respect.
Right.
But you have to be exposed to it. You have to be around and I see that going on right now in combat arms with women in the military. Is people who were against it just off some stereotype. Now they're seeing these women kick ass, probably kick more ass than they do because they had to get there. They didn't get, you
Right.
small population of women get to go to ranger school, then you got to be the best one there, right? So there is I see the tide turning. I see it changing a lot. It was like this a political experiment. Now people are accepting it. it's becoming the norm, which is what you want,
Right.
So I'm a big fan. Having daughters, I'm a big fan seeing it. But what has been your most, if you had, I'm gonna catch you off guard here.
Okay.
Of the women in military stories you've had, you've listened to, you've interviewed, which one stands out as the most impactful to you?
That's really hard.
It is. It is.
Because whenever I like record, or it's when I'm editing that I realize how much I like each episode.
Mm-hmm.
And so my answer is kind of weird because it's not actually a woman who served in the military that I gained the most from. It was actually I interviewed a mom she's a military child, and then she did ROTC, and right before she graduated she got medically disqualified, and her commander told her, don't think this time when you were in ROTC was wasted, because later in your life you're going to have to use it. And all 4 of her kids are officers in the military: Marines, Army, Navy, Air Force, and 3 of them went to the Naval Academy. And so just hearing her wisdom and hearing her story, and I got to interview her daughter too, which was really cool. And so I just really loved hearing her experience as a woman, but from an experience that we normally don't ever get to hear, because, I mean, moms are moms forever, even when your kid goes off to war. So to just hear her talk about what it was like to use that time that she had done ROTC and like that training of being in the military, and how she used that and how she helps other moms get through military experiences, it was just so cool to listen to, and something that I never expected to hear.
You went through ROTC yourself, right?
I did.
So
yeah.
You can relate to a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sounds great. I mean, where is the best way for people to find your podcast?
The podcast, you can find it on almost any podcast app. You just put in Women of the Military, but you could also go to my blog, which is www.airmantomom.com/podcast, and you can find all the podcast episodes there.
And you've got the synopsis on there as well, so you can pick and choose. I was cruising.
Yes, I have a synopsis for each episode so that people can see what they're about and not just blindly click on them.
Right.
So, yeah, the first one is like a overview of like why I started the podcast, and then the second interview is me talking a little bit about my military experience, and then they keep going. So
they're on their interviews.
Yes.
Sounds great. So what's coming up next? You've got the book, right?
Yes.
And and you said the book's coming out in July?
June 12th.
June 12th. Okay.
Because in 1948, Truman signed that women could be in the military outside of wartime.
Sounds like great timing.
Yeah.
And then your husband, he's still active duty.
He's still active duty. We have 7 more years, counting down.
They go fast.
I know.
On the other side of 10, they go quick.
Well, I was telling my mom, I was like, we have this PCS, and then we're going to move one more time, and then we might not move again. We'll be done. And she's like, how is that possible? And I was like, we only have 7 more years. So, yeah.
That'll be his 20 then. So he's dead set on 20.
I think so. Yeah.
They'll dangle carrots. I almost stayed in over 20, but then my wife's business took off and we got to switch seats. She became the primary, I guess, breadwinner. I've got my pension, and I became the stay-at-home dad and started podcasting. And it's been very enlightening for me as well.
Yes, that's I have 7 years to get the podcast and like my business going, and that way we can do something similar, because I think he would have fun being at home.
It is fun. He'll go through his own adjustment, but it's fun. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast. And you're on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
Airman Mom on Facebook. Got that right?
Yep, Airman to Mom.
Airman to Mom.
Everything is Airman to Mom.
What other media are you on? Are you on?
I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Pinterest.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, thank you for being on the show. I appreciate it. I enjoyed this interview, and I really look forward to your book coming out. And I'm going to be checking out your podcast as well. The more people I interview who podcast, you start getting that filler of, I'm following probably like 5 friends now are podcasting, but it's fun. I learn a lot. I enjoy it, and I meet cool people.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you very much. Okay. And